Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our continuing series of programs on celebrating diverse voices. Today, I'm very excited to have an educational institution leader, Dr. Antoine Garibaldi from the University of Detroit Mercy. Before we get started, though, please let me remind you that there's a chat box option on the right-hand side of your screen. So if you'd like to submit questions to Dr. Garibaldi, please do so. Once I have a quick chat with him, my colleague Bernard Parker will be standing by to ask some of your questions. So today, as I mentioned, we have Dr. Antoine Garibaldi, and he'll be discussing how to create equitable access to higher education opportunities and how that impacts communities. He'll share how Detroit Mercy's tuition reset is allowing more Detroit students to attend the university, and how a partnership with Live 6 Alliance is helping the university's McNichols Campus connect with the surrounding neighborhood, plus much more. I have to tell you, as I've had the chance to prep with Dr. Garibaldi and a couple of calls here, I'm just so impressed with him and all that he's done. So Dr. Garibaldi, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tam. It's great to be with you.
Thank you, thank you. So one of the pieces that really jumped out at me was obviously the equitable access to education and how it creates stronger, more resilient communities. So can you talk about that? What's the relationship between equitable access, I have trouble with that word today, equitable access and then creating stronger, more resilient communities?
Well, thanks for the question. It's really important. Detroit Mercy, as you know, it's a Catholic university. It's been around since 1877, and so just 10 years younger than Wayne State University. So we have been a part of this community in our three campuses for a very, very long time. And the university has always looked for ways to expanding our enrollment and also making it as diverse as possible. So we've provided a number of different kinds of opportunities for prospective students as well as our current students to really be very, very successful. And I want to say at the outset that we're here in a pandemic. And last year, 7% fewer students went to college nationally. And many of those students were students who came from high poverty schools. And that's one of those areas that we really need to condense much, much more. And just for example, only about 50% of students who came from high poverty schools last year went to college, compared to about 60% the previous year. And a little bit more than 70% of students from less poverty and more wealthy schools went to college. So in both cases, there was a considerable decline, but there is an opportunity here for us to really recoup on that. And so that's one of the reasons why 4 years ago we announced our tuition reset, and we dropped our tuition. I say drop, but really reset it from $41,000 to $28,000. We have hundreds of scholarships that are available to students in fields like science, engineering, and business, nursing, all across the board. And we have been very fortunate to receive a number of national grants through the U.S. Department of Education, National Institutes for Health, National Science Foundation that we pursued because 1/3 of our student population are first-generation college students. And that's pretty much what it was like early on in the early history of the university. In fact, you know, very few people had the opportunity to go to college, go to high school, let alone college during those days. So it's a part of our mission, and one of those things that we are really continue to work very hard on.
That's excellent. As you know, the Chamber and shares with Governor Whitmer and others a goal of 60% post-secondary attainment by the year 2030, and so your efforts are going to be very, very important to reaching that goal. So as we talked about communities, I'd like to get an idea from you. You've worked in higher education in other cities like Nolens, Washington, D.C., Erie, I think maybe you said, Pennsylvania, you said.
Exactly.
What are some of the similarities and differences compared to Detroit as we look to increase education equity in our city?
Well, one of the defining characteristics of all those places is that they're all urban areas. I mean, Erie is the 4th largest city in Pennsylvania. Obviously, Washington, D.C., and also New Orleans are all very, very strong in large urban schools or urban cities. So there's a lot of commonality among those various cities. And one of the things that I really like to do is to try to tap into as much as possible what students are really looking for, what parents are actually looking for. And so we've tried to build on those relationships. I mean, here we've got, the major automotive makers. We also have lots of opportunities for students to branch off into areas like computers, engineering, and science, business, and the like. And lots of times, then I must say, architecture, as well as the health professions and dentistry, and in our School of Law. And many times students don't know what their opportunities are. So I try to get to the schools as often as I can. I'm an educator, I used to train teachers. So I was a principal at one time in my career. So I haven't lost that touch. But I think it's very, very important for students to expand their horizons. And that's one of the reasons why we talk about build a boundless future, because that really is something that every student who is in high school should begin to think about. And we try to get them to think about that even through our dual enrollment program, where we take students who are juniors and seniors and they begin to take classes here at the university. When you're sitting in a class with college students and you already know that, okay, I can do this, then I think that they really begin to say, yes, this is really a possibility for it. So you have to almost bring them to these different places. And we have many colleges, universities here in the state of Michigan.
So building on that a bit, when trying to engage youth in urban centers, particularly those of color, what message do those of us around need to take into the high schools for counselors and students about pursuing higher education?
Well, I think the first thing is to say that a college education is possible and is affordable. Many of our state universities provide enough financial aid and at a lower cost that a student can go to any college university that they want. They also can attend an institution like University of Detroit Mercy. I'm always surprised when students say, well, I don't think I can afford a private institution. Well, they might have heard that from mom or dad or from somebody else. And once we start showing them that with their financial background and the scholarships that we offer, they could go to college really for free. I mean, we have a great program that we received and we work closely with Wayne State University on called the NIH Rebuild Detroit program. 4-year scholarships for students who are interested in the biomedical sciences, for example. That's a great opportunity for students. We accept about 30 a year. We have another program very similar in computer science and engineering, that we call our Science Equity and Diversity program. The MBA program provides lots of opportunities for students to do it. But I start talking to them about careers and possibilities. And I've been very impressed with the students from Detroit and this entire metropolitan area. I've been very impressed that students are looking at architecture as a possibility. They've been looking at dentistry, which is one of those professions where we have a small number of African-American students who pursue those. Many will go into dentistry, and I've been at Howard University, my alma mater, as well as Xavier University. So I know that students might go in that direction as opposed to medicine. But when you start laying it out and you have them sit down and talk to a student who is not that much older than they, it really makes a tremendous impact because they're talking to someone who came from a similar background from them and also who is in college now pursuing a dream of theirs. But I do think that that makes a lot of difference. And we try to put them in those roles as much as possible so they can be the mentors and they can be the recruiters and saying, if you do not pursue post-secondary education, then you're really missing out on a lot that you may want to have during your lifetime.
And if I remember correctly, Dr. Garibaldi, I think you told me you also have your alumni go into the schools who are already in professions and say, look what I did, and you can do this too.
Absolutely. So, it's the call out for all of our alumni. We have 100,000 alumni in every state and over 80 countries. And many of our alumni here in the area have participated in 30-minute mentoring programs. And we're using that by way of technology like we're using today for anybody who might be out in Wyoming or in California to do the same kind of thing. And just that 30-minute mentoring experience, it impresses the alumni even more so than it impresses the students, I think, because in a way they're giving back, but they remind themselves of themselves when they were 18 or 19 years old and in college and just did not know whether or not they would be able to have this opportunity in life. So I think those personal messages probably mean a whole lot more to the students, and teachers and counselors. Teachers and counselors do a great job as well too.
Yeah, I think that's so terrific. So as we talk about going from high school to college, you, sir, have been a leading voice on historically Black colleges and universities. Reflect a bit on the impact they have had on society and getting more Black students on campuses. And how do we maximize their role in the broader education ecosystem in the years ahead?
Right. Well, thanks for mentioning that. I did a book back in 1984 called Black Colleges, Universities, Challenges for the Future. And at that time, it was really, the rationale was to show the importance of historical Black colleges. And back in the 80s and in the 70s, historical Black colleges probably produced a lot more graduates who are Black than a lot of the other, predominantly white institutions. And much of that was due to segregation of many public colleges, universities. Today, HBCUs account for about 80% of all students who are in college. So we've got about over 16 million students who are in college total, but 20% of those students are at historical Black colleges, universities. So students have so many more places to go today that some of them want to go back to the places where their mothers and fathers or their aunts and uncles went there. But HBCUs continue to make a very significant impact. I talked about Xavier University, but when you take Xavier and Howard University, for example, the majority of Black doctors today have come from those two institutions, even in 2021. So there are lots of contributions in different areas, and I find that students are looking at all opportunities. Students who might be accepted at the University of Michigan or Michigan State or an Ivy League school or Wayne State University. Their opportunities are tremendous today, considering what their parents might have had some 30 years ago. So HBCUs continue to make a significant impact, and I'm still very much involved with a lot of them. I'm happy to say some of my former graduates are, from my days at Xavier and Howard, are presidents of HBCUs today. And and it's something that we have to continue because every institution is meaningful in today's society.
Well, Detroit is lucky that you have those connections, sir. Earlier, you mentioned the various grants that you've secured to be able to help students to get to a post-secondary education. I think there's another important element you told me about, which is the response that you've received from the philanthropic community to help make it possible for more equitable access to education. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Well, a number of the grants that we have pursued and secured include grants like the Upward Bound program. We received an Upward Bound grant. That was our first grant that the university has ever had. And we work very closely with Frederick Douglass High School and also Osborne. And those are predominantly young men who are thinking about college, and we're beginning to prepare so that they will have as many college choices as possible by the time that they graduate. The local philanthropic community has been tremendous. I can't say enough about the Kresge Foundation that really helped to finance the Live 6 Alliance, or Illinois 6 Mile neighborhood corridor that we started 6 years ago. And, Rip Rapson and Wendy Jackson and all of the team from there have just been, absolutely tremendous. So we're doing a lot of things here in the community. In the same way, the Kellogg Foundation has been very, very supportive of our work, and Hudson Weber as well, and a number of others. Baumer have also made contributions too. But in education, the work that we have been able to do in terms of the neighborhood and in the city has largely been spurred because of some of the service learning that our students get involved in around the country, around the city. So things that are going on with the Detroit Collaborative Design Center in our School of Architecture, for example, is a good example of that. They've been supported by Kresge and the Ford Foundation for a very, very long time too. And so when we think about opportunities to support students, it's not always through scholarships. Sometimes it's funding programs where our students really get the opportunity to participate in on a very, very active basis. So like I said, the national grants from the Department of Education and the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, have all been very, very helpful in providing those scholarships and career opportunities for those students down the line.
So I want to change our conversation a little right now to talk about some really important issues of today. You were friends with civil rights leader and DC power broker Vernon Jordan, who passed away recently. Yes. He had tremendous influence on voting rights and was also a strong proponent for more diversity in the boardroom. Reflecting on his legacy, how do we best continue his work?
Well, I think fortunately Vernon had a lot of people who worked along with him over the years who have followed in his footsteps, in part by his example. He was a great leader for the National Urban League and also the United Negro College Fund, as well as some other organizations that he was involved in the South as well. I think that the initiatives today for voting rights is probably one of the most important today, as well as education. Because, you know, as I noted in the op-ed I wrote, not a lot of people really talk about him with respect to education, but education, he made a tremendous difference because he knew that that was where the opportunities were going to go going forward. So those relationships that he made between corporations and also with, you know, some of the major philanthropic organizations really helped to move that along. So, you know, I saw Mark Boreal on TV this morning on the CBS Morning Show, and Mark's from New Orleans as well, as you know, and he's done a great job in leading that charge, not just in terms of you know, voting rights, but also in terms of jobs. And that was one of the Urban League's strongest programs when Vernon Jordan was head of it in the 1970s and the early 1980s, because a lot of the job training initiatives and efforts really came with a lot of the support from the National Urban League and that strong relationship between the corporations. So I see that coming back at a very, very opportune time. And once again, not just because of the pandemic, but just because of the fact that we still have a very small number of individuals who have college educations who can really pursue some of those opportunities. I often say that here in Michigan, for example, only about 20% of our entire Michigan population over 24 years of age have gone to college. And that's a surprising number for some, but when you think about the shift of the industrial, you know, the industrial movement, you know, that's not that surprising to me.
Right. Well, I'd like to now bring in my colleague, Bernard Parker, so he can share some of the questions from our participants today. So Bernard.
Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate you. Dr. Antoine Michael Garibaldi. Doctor, your curriculum vitae, if you will, is truly, truly impressive. You've done a lot in the area of education, civil rights. But what I'd like to ask you really is some questions about you, per se, okay? So get ready for this. I just want to know, why did you choose education? I mean, you graduated from Howard Psychology, cum laude, University of Minnesota, I believe, educational psychology. What made you decide to take that?
Well, I enjoyed education. I enjoyed teaching, and I realized it was something that I really did love. Now, you know, in terms of the career path, as I like to tell my students when they come in for our weekly student hour, and I do that regularly with students, I tell them I did not know the full path that I would go, but I knew what I liked, and I'd always tell them, major in something that you like. So at the graduate school level, I was an undergraduate in sociology, but at the graduate school level, I really did enjoy education. And I had the great opportunity to be the principal of an Urban League Street Academy in St. Paul, Minnesota when I was in graduate school. And I enjoyed that so much and worked on suspensions and expulsion. I said, I really planned to be a professor, and that's really what I wanted to do. So I just find that there's such a joy to teach. And I say this for all teachers. You could teach someone in first grade, and you'll be just as proud when you see that individual become a mayor or a governor or the CEO of a corporation or the principal of your own school, because you have such an impact on them. And I like to say I still hear from students whom I taught in 4th and 5th grade in Washington, D.C., and even serve as their references, all these many years later, because truly, it was a connection that I made, and it really is something that I still love very, very much. So I just think teaching is a profession that doesn't get as much attention and promotion as it truly deserves.
Thank you for your answer, sir. So, Doctor, I was joking a little bit earlier before we came on about you being the first lay president of UD Mercy. You were the first president at Gannon University. And what's significant about that is you were the first Black president. You're a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, Sigma Pi Phi. You were the sire, heavily in Boule. You've authored over 11 books, 90 scholarly research articles. I mean, well, first, where do you find time, and how does it feel, honestly, to be the first? I mean, it's like landing on the moon. You have set precedent for those of us behind you that want to be like you. What would you say to those folks? I mean, how does it feel?
Well, seriously, I really don't think about it nearly as much about being the first. I'm very pleased at the fact that the Board of Trustees of this wonderful university, as did Gannon University, selected me to be the president of their institution, that they had the trust and the confidence in me. And my focus is really on education and making sure that the institution is stronger and better every day. And I would say that our alumni have responded, our students and faculty have responded very, very well. Individuals who have been friends of the university have responded very, very well. But what I tell students all the time is you never know where you're going to land. But for every job that you're doing, somebody is watching and somebody is looking. And someone is going to recommend you and nominate you for different kinds of opportunities. And some of that's happened to me. But I think the more important part of it is just work hard. And I always tell them, set some realistic goals and everything will fall in place. And that's the title of a career article that I give to lots of them when they come in as a freshman and we start talking about what they plan to do. And it gives them a little idea of saying, I don't have to map it all out myself, that some things are just going to happen that I may never expect. And so the fact that I'm the first lay president, the first African-American president of University of Detroit Mercy, I never imagined it, never thought about it, but I'm very, very happy to have had the opportunity to be the president of this great institution.
Wow, that's awesome. So we have a question from Mr. Godfrey Agua, and he says, how would you recommend getting students, both young and old, interested in not just attending college, but committing to obtaining a degree?
Well, I think one of the most important things is when someone comes to an institution, they develop relationships. They develop relationships with their peers, their fellow classmates, but they also develop relationships with their faculty and the staff, the people in student affairs and the financial aid office, the enrollment office. That's really where the connection is. And for every person that a student meets, that individual has a vested interest in seeing that that student is a successful student. And so even when our parents come here during the summertime and we have our summer orientation program for both the parents as well as the students, we tell them support your sons and daughters, but one of the things that's going to happen is you're going to find a lot of other support around the university. So we have a mutual responsibility to make sure that everyone is successful. And so when I was telling Tammy a little while ago about some of those programs, like our Student Support Services program, a student can get assistance with academic tutoring. They can get assistance with career planning, with financial aid, prospective job opportunities during the summertime, maybe even during the school year, though we tell them don't do nearly as much. And also getting involved in the university community, because college really is an experience. It's not just you walking back and forth taking classes. And we have lots of commuters here. 85% of our students are commuters. So we really stress them to get involved in a club or an organization, be very, very involved. As a Catholic university, we have many different religious opportunities for students of many different faiths, because maybe 30 to 40% of our students are Catholic, but many of them are from other religions and faith traditions. So that's one of the reasons why. In fact, by the time a student gets to the fourth year, they're going to say, can I continue on, because I'm not ready to leave this. I'm enjoying it so much. But I believe that those relationships are lasting relationships, and they mean so much to someone that they will be motivated to succeed.
So, Doctor, let me ask you another question, if I may. You're a fellow both of the American Education Research and the American Psychological Education, which recognize you as one of the exceptional psychologists. How do you prepare you for where you are now? I mean, your training and so forth, your leadership, how do you see that kind of coming together?
Well, I enjoy staying actively involved in my research, things that I've done over the years. And, sometimes people think that administration is very boring, rather routine, and it really is not. And my faculty colleagues here and my staff members, we've all gone on to school and we've all trained. And I do think that we're all better because of the fact that we stay actively involved and actively engaged in our research. And that's one of the reasons why we've also assisted students in participating in some of our programs, like the Rebuild Detroit program and some of the other programs in all of our 7 schools and colleges, because it also opens and expands their own horizons, and to think, well, maybe I can be a dentist, for example, or a lawyer, and still be able to teach as an adjunct one day. And maybe I will find more enjoyment there rather than doing some of the things that I do on a daily basis. So I think that's the same way for every profession. When a person who is an accountant moves over into the ranks of the administration, that doesn't mean that they no longer become an accountant. No, they probably become even more engaged in that as well. So it's not an either or, but I think more of an and in both.
Thank you, sir. So as my grandmother would say after a good pot of gumbo, laissez-le bon temps rouler, let the good times roll. I'm going to turn you over to Tammy, and it's been an honor, and thank you sincerely for your blessing to me. Thank you. Be great.
Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you very much, Bernard. And now I'm hungry. I haven't had lunch yet, and I'm going to be thinking about gumbo. We're just about out of time, but Dr. Garibaldi, I just want to give you the opportunity, if there was anything I didn't bring up or Bernard didn't bring up that you think feels important to share.
Well, I would encourage everyone to go to our website, see some of the wonderful things that our students and our faculty and staff are doing. We've got a great construction project that's outside, making a lot of noise while I'm talking right now. It's the expansion of our student union and renovation project. There's a lot to see. Contact our admissions officer, and this is a great time for you to come and visit. And fortunately, the restrictions are beginning to get a little bit, less stringent, so that students can actually come and walk around the campus and say hello to everyone. So
that sounds great. That sounds great. So to our participants who are with us today, I want to make sure you know that you can go on the Chamber's website at detroitchamber.com, and you can see today's session, but also you'll see the upcoming sessions in Celebrating Diverse Voices. Some of my dear friends, Dennis Archer Sr. and Dennis Archer Jr. will be in one session, and Brenda Walker and Stephen Henderson in another, so they should be very, very interesting. So I hope you check that out. Dr. Garibaldi, it has been just such a pleasure talking with you today, and I've enjoyed getting to know you. And thank you for all you're doing for our students, our Detroit students, and our educational system, and including equity into your overall vision.
Well, you're quite welcome. Thanks so much for this wonderful opportunity too.
Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks.